KZOM Radio presents Know Your Cryptids, an in-depth analysis and discussion of all the creatures of legends. Hosted by Matt Jarbo. Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of Know Your Cryptids. My name is Matt Jarbo, and I'll be your host through this journey of amazement, wonder, and knowledge. Today we're going to be discussing the Loch Ness Monster. Now, this show is all about legendary creatures. And of course, a lot of us don't really believe these things exist, but I don't know. I'm pretty I like to believe that these things exist. I've said that before on the show. But looking at the Loch Ness Monster has always been a more fascinating one from when I was a kid, because there's so much surrounding it. It always feels like they're just so close to catching it. And there's all these things about the loch and the monster and the pictures and everything. It just always seems like it's right there, like it's almost ready to be discovered. And of course it hasn't been, but let's not dwell on that. Let's dwell on the information that we do know about the Loch Ness Monster. So get ready. This is going to be a long one. I'm going to admit this is a long one. So get prepared, go to the bathroom, you can pause it, I'll still be here. And okay, you ready? Good. And let's get going for today's episode about the Loch Ness Monster. The Loch Ness Monster is a cryptid that is reported to inhabit Loch Ness in the Scottish Highlands. The most frequent speculation is that the creature represents a long-surviving plesiosaur, similar to the other supposed lake monsters in Scotland and elsewhere, though its description varies from one account to the next. Popular interest and belief in the animal has varied since it was brought to the world's attention in 1933. Evidence of its existence is anecdotal, with minimal and much disputed photographic and material and sonar readings. The scientific community regards the Loch Ness Monster as a modern-day myth and explains sightings as a mix of hoaxes and wishful thinking. Despite this, it remains one of the most famous examples of cryptozoology. The legendary monster has been affectionately referred to the nickname Nessie since the 1950s. Origins. The term monster was reportedly applied for the first time to the creature on May 2, 1923 by Alex Campbell, the water bailiff for Loch Ness and a part-time journalist. In a report with the Inverness Courier on August 4, 1933, the Courier published a full news item that the claim of a London man, George Spicer, that a few weeks earlier, while motoring around the loch, he and his wife had seen the nearest approach to a dragon or prehistoric animal that I have ever seen in my life, trundling across the road toward the loch carrying an animal in its mouth. Other letters began appearing in the Courier, often anonymously, with claims of land or water sightings, either on the writer's part or on the parts of the family, acquaintances, or stories they remembered being told. These stories soon reached the national and then later international press, which described it as a monster fish, sea serpent, or dragon, eventually settling on Loch Ness Monster. On December 6, 1933, the first purported photograph of the monster taken by Hugh Gray was published, and shortly after, the creature received official notice when the Secretary of State for Scotland ordered the police to prevent any attacks on it. In 1934, interest was further sparked by what is known as the surgeon's photograph. In the same year, R.T. Gould published a book, the first of many that described the author's personal investigation and collected record of additional reports predating the summer of 1933. Other authors have claimed that the sightings of the monster go back as far as the 6th century. History of the Loch Ness Monster. St. Columbia. The earliest report of a monster associated with the vicinity of Loch Ness appears in the Life of St. Columbia, written in the 17th century. According to the book, writing about a century after the events he described, an Irish monk, St. Columbia, was staying in the land of Picts with his companions when he came across the locals burying a man by the name of River Ness. They explained that the man had been swimming near the river when he was attacked by a water beast that had mauled him and dragged him under. They tried to rescue him in a boat, but were only able to drag up his corpse. Hearing this, Columba stunned the Picts by sending his follower, Luigi Mokumin, to swim across the river. The beast came after him, but Columba made a sign of the cross and commanded, "Go no further, do not touch the man, go back at once." The beast immediately halted as if it were pulled back with ropes and fled in terror, and both Columba's men and the pagan Picts praised God for the miracle. Believers in the Loch Ness Monster often point to this story, which notably takes place on the River Ness rather than the loch itself, as evidence for the creature's existence as early as the 6th century. However, skeptics question the narrative's reliability, noting that the water beast stories were extremely common in medieval saints' lives. As such, tales like this is likely a recycling of common motif attached to a local landmark. According to the skeptics, the story may be independent of the modern Loch Ness Monster legend entirely, only becoming attached to it in retrospect by believers seeking to bolster their claims. Additionally, in the article for Cryptzoology by A.C. Thomas, he notes that even if there were some truth to the story, it could be explained rationally as an encounter with a walrus or similar creature that had swum up the river. R. Binns acknowledges this account is the most serious of varied alleged early sightings of the monster, but argues that all claims of the monster sightings prior to 1933 are highly dubious and do not prove that there was a tradition of the monster before this date. Spicers, 1933. Modern interest in the monster was sparked by the July 22, 1933 sighting when George Spicer and his wife saw the most extraordinary form of animal cross the road in front of their car. They described the creature as having a large body, about 4 feet high and 25 feet long, and long, narrow neck, slightly thicker than an elephant's trunk, and as long as the 10 to 12 foot width of the road. The neck had a number of undulations on it. They saw no limbs, possibly because of a dip in the road obscuring the animal's lower portion. It lurched across the road towards the loch about 20 yards away, leaving only a trail of broken undergrowth in its wake. In August 1933, a motorcyclist named Arthur Grant claimed to have nearly hit the creature while approaching on the northeastern shore at about 1 a.m. on a moonlit night. Grant claimed that he saw a small head attached to a long neck and that the creature saw him cross the road back into the loch. He described it as a hybrid between a seal and a plesiosaur. Grant said he dismounted and followed it to the loch, but only saw ripples. However, some believe the story was intended as a humorous explanation of a motorcycle accident. Sporadic land sightings continued until 1963, when a film of the creature was shot in the loch from a distance of 4 kilometers. Because of the distance it was shot, it had been described as poor quality. In 1938, Inverness Shire Chief Constable William Fraser penned a letter stating that it was beyond a doubt that the monster existed. His letter expressed concern regarding a hunting party that had arrived armed with a specially made harpoon gun and were determined to catch the monster dead or alive. He believed his power to protect the monster from the hunters was very doubtful. The letter was released by the National Archives of Scotland on April 27, 2010. C.B. Farrell, 1943. In May 1943, C.B. Farrell of the Royal Observer Corps was supposedly distracted from his duties by a Nessie sighting. He claimed to have been about 250 yards away from a large-eyed finned creature which had to be about 20 to 30 feet long, and a neck that protruded about 4 to 5 feet out of the water. Sonar contact, 1954. In December 1954, a strange sonar contact was made by fishing boat the Rival 3. The vessel's crew observed sonar readings of a large object keeping pace with the boat at a depth of 480 feet. It was detected traveling for half a mile in this manner before contact was lost, but then was found again later. Many sonar attempts have been made previously, but most were either inconclusive or negative. Photographs and films of the Loch Ness Monster. Surgeon's photograph, 1934. One of the most iconic images of Nessie is known as the surgeon's photograph. Its importance lies in the fact that this was the first photo and only photographic evidence of a head and neck. All others were humps or disturbances. Dr. Wilson claimed that he was looking at the loch when he saw the monster, so he grabbed his camera and snapped 5 photos. After the film was developed, only 2 exposures were clear. The first photo, the more publicized one, shows what was claimed as a small head and back. The second one, a blurry image, attracted little publicity because it was difficult to interpret what was depicted. The image was revealed as a hoax in 1994. Supposedly taken by Robert Kenneth Wilson, a London gynecologist, it was published in the Daily Mail on April 21, 1934. Wilson's refusal to have his name associated with the photograph led to it being called the surgeon's photograph. The strangely small ripples of the photo fit the size and of circular patterns of a small ripples as opposed to large waves when photographed up close. Analysis of the original uncropped image fostered further doubt. A year before the hoax was revealed, makers of a Discovery Communications documentary, Loch Ness Discovered, analyzed the uncropped image and found a white object visible in every version of the photo, implying that it was on the negative. It seemed to be the source of the ripples of the water, almost as if the object was towed by something, the narrator said. But science cannot rule out that it was just a blemish on the negative, he continued. Additionally, analysis of the photograph revealed that the object was quite small, only about 60 to 90 centimeters long. In 1979, it was claimed to be a picture of an elephant. Other skeptics in the 1980s argued the photo was of an otter or a diving bird, but after Christian Sperling's confession, most agreed that it was what Sperling claimed, a toy submarine with the sculpted head attached. Details of how the photo was accomplished were published in the 1999 book Nessie, The Surgeon's Photograph Exposed. Essentially, it was a toy submarine with a head and neck made of plastic wood, built by Christian Sperling, the son-in-law of Marmaduke Wetherell, a big game hunter who had been publicly ridiculed in the Daily Mail, the newspaper that employed him. Sperling claimed that to get revenge, Marmaduke Wetherell committed the hoax with the help of Chris Sperling, a sculpture specialist, his son Ian Marmaduke, who bought the material for the fake Nessie, and Maurice Chambers, an insurance agent who would call to ask Surgeon Robert Kenneth Wilson to offer pictures to the Daily Mail. The hoax is disputed by Henry Bauer, who claims this debunking is evidence of bias and asks why the perpetrators did not reveal their plot earlier to embarrass the newspaper. He also claimed that plastic wood did not exist in 1934, when it actually was a popular do-it-yourself modeling material in the early 1930s. Tim Dinsdale also disputes the claim of that the photograph is a hoax in his book, The Loch Ness Monster. He claims that he studied the photograph so often and from many different angles that he was unable to discern objects that prove the photograph is not a hoax. He states, upon really close examination, there are certain rather obscure features in the picture that have profound significance. Two of the obscure features are a solid object breaking the surface to the right of the neck, and to the left and behind the neck there is a mark of some other sort, Dinsdale states. After making this claim, Dinsdale discusses that these objects are too hard to tell what they are, but that it just proves that they could be part of the monster. According to Dinsdale, either the objects are part of a very subtle fake or genuinely part of the monster. Another object he points out to prove the photograph is not a fake is the vague, smaller ripples that are behind the neck, which seem to have been caused after the neck broke the surface. Dinsdale emphatically states that this is part of it, the animal underwater behind the neck. All of his facts prove that it is possible that this photograph is not a fake, at least according to Tim Dinsdale. Alistair Boyd, one of the researchers who uncovered the hoax, argues that the Loch Ness Monster is real, and that although the famous photo was hoaxed, that does not mean that all the photos, eyewitness reports, and footage of the monster were as well. He asserts that he too had a sighting, and also argues that the hoaxed photo is not a good reason to dismiss eyewitness reports and other evidence. The Taylor Film, 1938. In 1938, G.E. Taylor, a South African tourist, filmed something in the loch for 3 minutes on 16mm color film, which was in the possession of Maurice Burton. However, Burton refused to show the entire film to Loch Ness investigators, such as Peter Costello or the Loch Ness Investigation Bureau. A single frame of the book was published in his book, The Elusive Monster, before he retired. Roy P. Mackle, a biologist and cryptozoologist, declared the frame was positive evidence. Later, it was shown to the National Institute of Oceanography. Dinsdale Film, 1960. In 1960, aeronautical engineer Tim Dinsdale filmed a hump crossing the water in a powerful wake unlike that of a boat. Jarkic declared that the object was probably animate. Others were skeptical, saying that the hump could not be ruled out as being a boat, and claimed that when the contrast is increased, a man can clearly be seen in a boat. In 1993, Discovery Communications made a documentary called Loch Ness Discovered that featured a digital enhancement of the Dinsdale film. A computer expert who enhanced the film noticed a shadow in the negative that was not very obvious in the positive. By enhancing and overlaying frames, he found what appeared to be the rear body, rear flippers, and 1 to 2 additional humps of a plesiosaur-like body. He said that, "Before I saw the film, I thought the Loch Ness Monster was a load of rubbish. Having done the enhancement, I'm not so sure." Some have countered this finding by saying that the angle of the film from the horizontal along with the sun's angle on that day made shadows underwater unlikely. Believers and some non-believers claim shape could have been undisturbed water that was only coincidentally shaped like the plesiosaur's rear end. But the same source also says that there might be a smaller object, a hump or a head, in front of the hump causing this. Nonetheless, the enhancement did show a smaller second hump and possibly a third hump. The Holmes video, 2007. On May 26, 2007, Gordon Holmes, a 55-year-old lab technician, captured video of what he said was this jet black thing about 45 feet long, moving fairly fast in the water. Adrian Shine, a marine biologist at Loch Ness 2000 Center, has watched the video and plans to analyze it. Shine also describes the footage as among the best footage ever seen. BBC Scotland broadcast the video on May 29, 2007. STV News North Tonight aired the footage on May 28, 2007, and interviewed Holmes. In this feature, Adrian Shine of the Loch Ness Center was also involved and suggested that the footage in the fact showed an otter, a seal, or water bird. Holmes' credibility has been doubted by an article on the Cryptmundo website, which says that he has a history of reporting sightings of cryptozoological creatures and sells a self-published book and DVD claiming evidence for fairies. His video also has no other object for size comparison. The Monster Quest team investigated this video as well in their TV episode Death of Loch Ness, where they examined the evidence that Nessie has died, as well as other photos. In this documentary, Holmes asserts that he spotted two creatures. The Loch Ness Monster phenomenon has seen several attempts to hoax the public, some of which were very successful. Other hoaxes were revealed rather quickly by the perpetrators or exposed after diligent research. In August 1933, Italian journalist Francesco Gasparini submitted what he claims was the first news article on the Loch Ness Monster. In 1959, he confessed to taking a sighting of a strange fish and expanding on it by fabricating eyewitness accounts. "I had the inspiration to get a hold of the item about the strange fish. The idea of the monster had never dawned on me, but then I noticed the strange fish would not yield a long article, and I decided to promote the imagery being to the rank of monster without further ado." In the 1930s, a big game hunter named Marmaduke Wetherell went to Loch Ness to look for the Loch Ness Monster. He claimed to have found some footprints, but when the footprints were sent to scientists for analysis, they turned out to be hippopotamus footprints. A prankster had used a hippopotamus foot umbrella stand to make the footprints. In 1972, a team of zoologists from Yorkshire Flamingo Park Zoo had gone out in search of the legendary monster and soon discovered a large body floating in the water. The corpse was 16 to 18 feet long and weighed up to 1.5 tons, described by the Press Association as having a bear's head and a brown scaly body with claw-like fins. The creature was put in a van to be taken away for testing, whereupon police chased them down and took the cadaver under Act of Parliament, which prohibits the removal of unidentified creatures from Loch Ness. But it was later revealed that Flamingo Park's education officer, John Shields, had shaved the whiskers and otherwise disfigured a bull elephant seal which had died the week before and dumped it in Loch Ness to dupe his colleagues. On July 2, 2003, Gerald McSorley found a fossil supposedly belonging to Nessie when he tripped and fell into the loch. After an examination, it became clear that the fossil wasn't from Loch Ness and that it had been planted there. In 2004, a documentary team for the television channel 5, using special effects experts from the movies, tried to make people believe there was something in the loch. They constructed an animatronic model of a plesiosaur and dubbed it Lucy. Despite setbacks such as Lucy falling from the bottom of the loch, about 600 sightings were reported in the places they conducted the hoaxes. In 2005, two students claimed to have found a huge tooth embedded in the body of a deer on the loch shore. They publicized the find widely, even setting up a website, but expert analysis soon revealed the tooth was that of a muntjac. The Loch Ness tooth was a publicity stunt to promote a horror novel by Steve Alton titled The Loch. In 2007, a video purported to show Nessie jumping high into the air showed up on YouTube. This was revealed by the online amateur skeptic community eSkeptic to be a viral ad promoting the upcoming Sony Pictures film, The Water Horse. The release of the film confirmed the eSkeptic analysis. The viral video comprises footage from The Water Horse. As we can see, the Loch Ness Monster has had quite a sordid history, with more people faking it than actually finding any evidence. That being said, who's to say what's out there, what's not? I know one of my goals in life is to head to Loch Ness, at least to see it firsthand. I don't know about you guys. I'd like to know what you think about the Loch Ness. Do you believe it exists? Do you think it's fake? Let us know at Twitter, at KZOM Radio, on Facebook, facebook.com/KZOM or even on our website at kzomradio.com, where we have Discuss set up. You guys can comment on there. So thank you very much for tuning into this episode. I will see you guys next time on KZOM Radio's Know Your Cryptids. My name is Matt Jarbo. Have a great day. See you later.